So the Pistons do have hopes that he will be back for the playoffs. But if he does not return in the regular season, it appears that Cade Cunningham could lose his MVP candidacy given the 65 game rule because he's only played in 62 games so far this season. So what do you think about the NBA's 65 game rule? Initially, the NBA implemented the 65 game rule as an incentive to avoid load management. But we've seen some repercussions, not just with Cade Cunningham, but also even with the Joker. He missed some significant time this season. Do you think that the NBA should reconsider the 65 game rule?
So first of all, shout out to Cade Cunningham. Get better soon. That's a bad deal all around. But your health, comes first. So get better soon. We love seeing you on the court. I actually like the 65 game rule, as distasteful as it is. Another player's having a career year, but they only play like in 50 of the games, and you've played, in like 81 of the games. I mean, I'd feel a certain way if like they got, the MVP award over me, when they only played in, half the games where I played almost the entire season, So now I do think the NBA is probably going to look at that rule probably this offseason and probably at least adjust that a little bit. Or if they don't, I think one of the ramifications is this might be what makes the NBA officially shorten the regular season, just because, like you said, it's like we're going to be seeing some really big names be left off of or miss out on awards, or even be left off of some All NBA teams. And obviously, the league probably doesn't want that type of look to see guys say like Joker, SGA, even miss some significant time. LeBron, miss or miss out on making an All NBA team. So I definitely think some changes are coming. I personally like the rule, even if it is going to affect my guy Joker. I mean, fair is fair, but I think definitely there's going to be enough pushback where they're going to do something this offseason.
It was kind of a way for like the NBA to make it appear as if they're cracking down on load management, because we know that for a lot of these players that the postseason awards, whether it's MVPs, All NBAs, those things matter when it comes to contract negotiations and whether these guys can get the supermax. So I think the NBA wanted to. So the reason behind that was they wanted to make it appear that they were cracking down on that, but realistically, but historically, like, I don't necessarily think they've rewarded too many like MVPs or certain like rewards to guys that have missed like significant time anyway, because one of the more recent ramifications of someone winning an award where some other guy may have been more deserving that didn't play as many games was when Malcolm Brogdon won the Rookie of the Year award over Joel Embiid. During that particular year, where I think Embiid, he only played like 30 something games. Like I can't remember the exact number, but he only played in like I think more or less half the games that season. But Malcolm Brogdon, I think he only averaged 9 points a game. Like he averaged less than 10 points a game during that span, and it was pretty much kind of a weak rookie class that year. But at the same time, I understood that the NBA needed the optics, as far as curbing down load management, because it's still been, because it's a common problem where it's like fans don't want to go to the games and see their favorite players sitting on the bench. Governors is going to decide on whether to approve expansion. So with the additional two teams, if the NBA does approve the expansion of to Vegas and Seattle, we would have 32 teams that will, both of those teams would be added to the Western Conference, and there would be a discussion of potentially the Minnesota Timberwolves and also even the Grizzlies and the Pelicans. One of those three teams could potentially move to the Eastern Conference as a result of the new realignment. Tracy McGrady also made some recent topics. He's an analyst on NBC Sports. He recently just made some comments about the league not being talented enough for expansion at this particular time. So for the first question I want to ask Matt is, do you think it's a good move for business-wise for the NBA to expand to Vegas and Seattle? And does when it comes to the state of basketball in the NBA, college, and international, is there a deep enough talent pool in the modern basketball climate for an expansion to work out?
So I think this would be a good move for the NBA. First of all, the city of Seattle, they were very passionate about the Seattle Supersonics. Like they, if there's any like fan base that deserves their team back, it is them. And then Vegas, they've been making it work with like football, and then I think they're about to get baseball. Vegas, it was almost like a no brainer in that regard as well. And with the current state of the NBA, they're kind of under some heat for like being to some people unwatchable. The last couple of years, and like the ratings are kind of taking a hit compared to the NFL. So from that perspective, I think it would be actually a great move for the NBA, and you could parody's been a hot topic with the league the last few years too. I think it would at least add even more parity to the association. In terms of what T-Mac said, listen, it's like anytime there's a new expansion team, it's going to take them a few years right off the bat to build something anyway. I think the pool is deep enough, and plus you got some of these kids coming out of college now that look better than ever. I know that you can make an argument with that, but in my opinion, it's like there's plenty of talent in like the G League, and like players in D1 who've got NIL deals who could thrive on the right team. So I think if you do expand, I don't think that finding the enough talent is going to be an issue. So I think all in all, this is going to be a good move for the NBA.
Yeah, so typically and historically, whenever like there's an expansion, they always do an expansion draft, which means that I think each team can protect a certain number of players. So I think the number of players is 7, I believe.
It's 8, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay, yeah, 8. Yeah, so yeah, copy that. Yeah, so I believe it's 8 protected players. You only keep 8 protected players. So so even amongst like the current pool, do you think that even amongst the current players, like do you think like the 8 through 12s in the roster, like around the league, will be enough to fill like a decent team?
I think so. And another, possible positive effect that comes from this is you might see some new stars emerge from this, from players who've had talent that we really didn't know, that we just kind of looked at as rotational pieces, and then all of a sudden they might get a chance to have more responsibility added on their plate, and we'll be shocked and be like, wow, who knew so and so had this in their bag. So I think that's going to be another possible outcome from this expansion.
Yeah, so when it comes to the history of expansion, there was a lot more expansion teams added to the NBA, like more so like in the late. It was more like in the late '80s and early '90s, because I think in '88 the Heat and the original Charlotte Hornets came into the league. And I think the next year, '89, I think the Magic and the T Wolves came into the league the next year. So that's like 4 expansion teams added over a 2-year span.
Yeah.
And then I think in '95, then they added I think the Raptors and the Grizzlies.
Hmm.
So and that was during like this is during like the '80s and '90s. When it's widely considered like one of the like more popular eras of the NBA.
Hmm.
So I do think there's I do disagree with T Mac's comments when it comes to like there not being enough talent pool around. Like I think there'll be enough to where I think there'll be enough talent around to where like it'll make it work with an expansion team. Now, obviously, they're not going to be good. You don't expect any of these teams to be good right away. Like you're going to have a rat. Like even when it comes to like the veteran pieces, like you're going to kind of have a ragtag bunch of guys trying to build a culture. So it's obviously going to take them a few years, but now I think probably the more successful expansion team was probably the Orlando Magic, but they pretty much got lucky in the lottery, because they pretty much got the number 1 pick back to back years. So fortune kind of favored them, but I think as far as big picture, Seattle, they're a city, I remember, I am old enough to remember, when the Seattle Sonics did exist. The first Laker game I actually went to was against Gary Payton and the Seattle Sonics, and he dropped 36 on us. When I looked up, I looked it up, I looked up the score like a little, years down the line. But yeah, Seattle, they've been, they just, saw the Seahawks win the Super Bowl. So, the city's been buzzing about that. So, I think if they get the news, I mean, I think it's going to be huge for Seattle to get a team again. And I think even GP2, Gary Payton II, I think he was talking about how he still wants to if it does get approved, like he would love to be able to play on that expansion team, be able to have like the Payton on the
Yeah.
back of the jersey again, and then GP and like his dad Gary Payton, like Gary Payton Sr. and Sean Kemp, like both of those guys can finally get their numbers retired and finally get a little bit of their just due. So I think it would definitely be cool for Seattle to get a team. And then as far as for Vegas, I mean now it's crazy how like when we were much younger, a lot of folks in the media used to say that there would never be a team there would never be any professional sports teams in Las Vegas. And now we've reached an era where basically in the last like 15 years or so now, we're pretty much now going to have all four major sports teams in Vegas. So, I mean, it's crazy how, and now, and really all that's going to do. And I think it's really just going to, given that Vegas is such a tourist, city, all like, people are going to travel from all over to go to these kinds of games. So, I think it'll be the same for the NBA. I think you see it even with the Broncos. Ever since the Raiders moved to Vegas, like a lot of the opposing teams fans, like they stay packing those Raider games, man. So the Celtics, they have a 5-2 record since Jason Tatum's return. They did lose back-to-back games to the Spurs and Oklahoma City Thunder on the road during their road trip, but they have now won 3 in a row. So Matt, do you think the Boston Celtics should be considered the favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference going into the postseason?
Well, unfortunately, considering the recent news about Kate Cunningham, which we kind of touched on, I would say yes, just because it's like, look, you look at the other top contenders in the Eastern Conference. You look at like the Detroit Pistons. We're not too sure what Kate's health is going to be in the postseason. Then you look at like a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, who've just flamed out the last couple of postseasons, even though they've had all the talent in the world on that roster. And yeah, they did add James Harden, but we also are aware of James Harden's track record in the postseason. And then the real threat would probably be the New York Knicks. That would probably be my Eastern Conference Finals preview right now, would be between them and Boston. But even then, it's like, do we think Karl Anthony Towns is going to be able to be sustainable for a 7-game series against Boston and their, tight-knit defense and Joe Mazzulla's creative schemes? I mean, Jalen Brunson, we know will get his, but it's like, you got one at Boston. You got Jason Tatum coming back healthy. Jaylen Brown has been a legitimate MVP candidate all season long. And then the supporting cast is just arguably the best supporting cast in the league with, Derek White, and the one thing with Boston is they're one of the best run front offices in the whole entire association. I mean, they put together, and part of it is Joe Mazzulla's coaching as well. He's like almost like a mad genius when it comes to him coaching on the court. I mean, not many teams in the league do you see utilize almost all 10 to 12 players on the bench, and like all of them look like, either if they're not the star, they look like quality rotational pieces, whereas if you traded them to, say, like a team like the Brooklyn Nets, they're going to be getting DMPs. So with those reasons, I think as of right now, I would consider them the favorites in the Eastern Conference.
And now with Jason Tatum back in the fold, I think they definitely should be the favorites, given the fact that I think Joe Mazzulla has done like his best coaching job, to your point, and like he's done a great job of getting his guys ready and staying engaged, to where like whenever anybody that goes out on their floor, like they understand what their role is, and they also understand. And they also know how to play within the team. So I mean, I think Joe Mazzulla deserves a lot of credit, and also obviously, Jaylen Brown, you say he's had an MVP caliber season. He's definitely done that. But I mean, all the guys like, Peyton Pritchard, even guys like Neemias Queta have stepped up. Derek White, I mean, he's pretty much, Derek White's one of the higher quality role players in the league. I mean, I think every team pretty much could use a Derek White on their team. But I mean, but also they have, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, those guys have championship experience. These guys just won a championship 2 years ago. From what they do on the defensive end as well, and the way that they shut the ball off is that I think they definitely should be the favorites. Now, Detroit, I think in the even before Cade's injury, they did, have a couple of losses earlier, like to a couple of contenders, like they lost to San Antonio. They got Rock. I think Detroit, like they've been proving themselves all year. They have been at the top spot in the East all season long, and I do think if they're able to get Cade Cunningham back, I think it won't affect them like within the first round. I think they'll still be able to get out of the first round, against whoever they go up against. But I think if they go up against a team like Boston or New York, they could run into some issues, with one of those teams. Now, New York did beat them in the playoffs last season.
It's going to be kind of crazy now with Tatum back, seeing what happens with that dynamic duo for the long haul, because Jaylen Brown is a former finals MVP, and then Jason Tatum at his best is a legitimate MVP candidate. So yeah, if I'm the Eastern Conference, I might be a little, the rest of the Eastern Conference, I might be a little scared right now.
They have now risen up to the third seed in the Western Conference. They were the number 3 seed last year. So, Matt, with this recent stretch with the Lakers, do you think the Lakers have shown that they are legitimate contenders in the Western Conference?
I'm going to go ahead and say they are. I mean, Luka Doncic, as of right now, would be my pick for MVP, honestly. I mean, with his recent stretch, in the last 5 games, he's averaging about 43 points per game, which is insane. On top of that, he's averaging still like 9 points or 9 assists and 8 rebounds, or I might have those 2 flip-flops. But regardless, the man's on another level right now. And you got LeBron James, really, who's kind of in a weird way buying into the third option role. And you never thought you'd say LeBron and third option in the same sentence, but in a weird way, it's kind of working for them, because you got Austin Reeves also balling at a high clip, and then you got guys like the supporting cast characters like DeAndre Ayton and Marcus Smart finally starting to kind of come into their own and play some sustained and positive basketball. And then plus they're one of, I think I remember they were saying when my Nuggets and Lakers faced off the other night, those were the 2 best scoring teams in the whole association. So the offense is clearly there. Now, the defense I'm a little concerned about come playoff time. I think you guys are ranked 20th in team defensive rating right now. So that needs to beat teams like an OKC or a San Antonio in a potential 7-game series. However, but with the way Luka's playing and Austin Reeves is playing, and then you got LeBron still there as kind of like insurance because he's been there, done that, I think you guys are in a real good spot right now. And I've said this with all sports, whether it's like, the NFL playoffs, the college football playoffs, even March Madness, which just started. A lot of the times when it comes to trying to make a title run, it's about who gets hot at the right time. And I think you guys are getting hot at the right time right now.
Yeah, it's definitely been like awesome to see. I think one of the telling things about the Lakers this particular season is that they've been the best team in the NBA when it comes to fourth quarter and clutch situations. And we've seen that the last couple of games where it's just like whenever you get into the fourth quarter, Luka and LeBron, it's like they seem like it seemed like we've seen like the big 3 of LeBron, Luka, Reeves. They've all kind of figured out they're starting to figure out how to play, and play in cohesion with one another, really, because, and really, LeBron, who missed like the first, month and some change of the season, due to his sciatica. And then, Reeves went out and missed some time. Luka missed some games as well. It was versus his child. So, they really didn't have a whole lot of time like on the court together up until pretty much like earlier this month. They finally started to get to like, about get to the 20 game mark of just games played together this season. So, now and they still haven't, and this trio of guys still haven't played a full 82 games together. Like just even going back to Luka just getting to the team last season. So, LeBron and D Wade, like, they're close friends off the court, the big 3 in Miami. Like it took them a whole year pretty much for them to figure out how to play together in cohesion with one another. So, it's really, a lot of these things tend to just take time when it comes to the chemistry. And now we're starting to see, LeBron, like, he's been the last couple of games, he's only missed like one or two shots in the field just because he's just been going around, getting up and down, basically being a slasher, almost ducker, type of player on the offensive end. And it's like it's been crazy to see. He's just been going around just throwing down jams like he's still in his 20s. So I guess it's crazy and unprecedented to see like LeBron playing like this, and then Luka. I mean, what he's been doing. I think it's like him. I think right now it's like him and Shea. I think Wemby's definitely in the mix as well. But I mean, what Luka's doing. I mean, he's just been an absolute assassin on the offensive end, man. And like honestly, as a Laker fan, like he's reminding me. Like his explosions are reminding me of like the Kobe era when it comes to the way he's like, going down where he's able to close these games down the stretch and these explosive offensive performances. I mean, man, like this is Luka's. Yesterday was Luka's third 60-point game in his career, man. Like that's insane.
Yeah, and the thing is like defensively, it's like the potential is definitely there in terms of like team defense. What was it? One of the Houston games, I think you guys held Kevin Durant to like only 2 points in the second half. I mean, that's Durant of all people. That's unheard of. So it's like if you can just put it together. Listen, I mean, Oklahoma City better watch out then.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to what we done on the defensive end, I got to give JJ Redick some credit because ever since Marcus Smart has been in the starting lineup, like what he does, like his vocal leadership on the defensive end, he directs guys, where they should go, like he talks on defense and like that, and like his like the way he crashes every loose ball, the way he rotates on the defensive end, is like that his amount of effort and intention on the defensive end, like it's been contagious to the rest of the guys on that team. So now, other guys have been stepping up. And then, yesterday, they got in late in Miami, at 5 a.m. But, but now like, guys like LeBron, Luka, and Reeves, they're still setting the man. I was like, no, like we're not going to sit out that game. Like we're still going to play. We're still going to keep up that streak. And then that pretty much set the tone for everybody else on the team to make sure that, hey, if we're gonna stop. We're not gonna make those excuses if the guy who's the oldest guy in the league, is still showing up and handling business. So what's your excuse? So I think JJ Redick deserves a lot of credit, and I think in the last couple of weeks, DeAndre Ayton, he was called out by a lot of people the last couple of weeks. A lot of Laker fans, myself included, but to his credit, to a man, he took accountability, and he's been playing well the last couple of weeks, man, and I think he's really going to be the main X factor as far as how far the Lakers go in the postseason. I'm not necessarily worried about Luka and LeBron, but I just think that like Ayton and I think Ayton and Reeves are really going to be the main X factor. So when those guys really have those kinds of heaters, like I think we typically don't lose when those guys are on. So I'm not worried about Luka and LeBron doing their things, but I think those two guys are going to be the main X factors as far as how far they go in the playoffs. Yeah, but anyway, we're going to get up out of here for this episode of The Floor Seats. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to this channel, Stacey on Sports. We're going to have more basketball content with The Floor Seats as well. And also check out some of the other shows. Matt, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, if you're a fan of any Denver team, really, go ahead and tune into my show, Level 5280.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.
The same team I picked for 2 out of 3. I'm going to go with the Arizona Wildcats. I just think they're the most complete team right this year. I like their collection of guards, and I think they're well coached. I mean, I don't really have any other reasons. I just think, they only lost, if I remember correctly, 2 games in the regular season, which is crazy. So I think I just have this feeling that it's Arizona's year. And for the women's, I'm just going to go with UConn. I mean, they're always, up there at one of the top programs in the whole nation when it comes to women's basketball. I think they're going to show it again why they are one of the toughest, programs again this season. And I think they're also same thing with Arizona, same reason as Arizona. I think they're just complete all around.
I think that's definitely a good pick. I think for the men's team, I'm going to go with the University of Houston. I think Kelvin Sampson, they've been kind of knocking in his program. They've been knocking on the door the last couple of years.